Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Sunday class with the Gita Dhyana. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrit Varshine Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Amatvam Anusandhame Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshine नमो अस्तुते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रदीपा परपान पारी जाताये तोत्र वेत्र एक पाने ज्ञान मुद्राए कृष्णाए गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्ये ग्राहवती कृपेन वाहने कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर नाकालु पांडवै रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलम गीता अर्थगंधोटकम नानाख्यानक केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदय रह रह पेपिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपातमं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यं ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्येस्तवे वेदै सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यान अवस्थित गतेन मनसः पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुषुर असुर गना देवाय तस्मै नमः. Let's open our books. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, the last chapter, Moksha Sanyas Yog. And we were looking at the verse number 14. Where Lord Krishna says, the adhishtanam tatha karta karnam cha prithak vidam vividha cha prithak cheshta devam cha eva patra panchamam. So in this verse we saw that Lord Krishna is enumerating the 5 components parts that go into the constitution of any action. Adhishtanam, karta, karana, cheshta and deva. Okay, adhishtanam could be this place where we are doing the action. Karta is the agent. Karana, the means. Cheshta, the effort. Devam, that is the circumstances. Okay, or the destiny. So 5. So even in our own body also, we can see that these are the constituents part of every action. Our body, the ego, the organs of perceptions, the organs of actions, and the divinity. Okay? So this is what Lord Krishna is telling us in this verse. So let's start the class with verse number 15, where Lord Krishna is further explaining it to us. शरीर वांग मनोभियत कर्म प्रारभते नरा न्यायम व विपरीतम व पंच एते तस्य हेतवः. शरीर is the body, वांग speech, मनोभि and the mind. So body, speech and mind. Yat means whatever. Karam, action. Prarabhate, performs. Nara, a human being. Nyayam, right. Va means or. Viparitam, the reverse, the opposite. Va means or. Panch, 5. Ete, these. Tasya, its. Hetva, causes. Whatever action a person performs by his body, speech and mind, whether right or wrong, these 5 are its causes. Okay, so the items which were listed in the previous verse, they come into full play in order to accomplish any action. So these are the 5 component parts, which are called the causes of all actions. And just to show that there's no exception, Lord Krishna, he says, whatever action a person does, because we do the actions through our body, which is called kaya, through our speech, vacha, and through our mind, mansa. So these are the 3 ways we perform actions. And we know that actions could be right or wrong. So these are the 5 essential parts in all of them. So 5-fold vision is the description given over here. We should correctly evaluate and appreciate what he's really saying over here. These 5 are the causes of all actions. Okay? If the soul were not granted a body by God, it could not have done anything at all. So that means the combination, the wedding between the soul and the Prakriti is needed. And if the body were not energized by God, it could have still done nothing. So the divine energy, which we call soul, cannot do anything separately. Even though energy is there, but it needs the Prakriti's help. And Prakriti, without the divinity, it's inert. So both are needed. This is what he's trying to tell us in this verse. See, just like if we have a car has the engine, the tires, the steering wheel, everything is there. Then we need the gas also. But if the driver is not there, cannot drive the car. It cannot move. So we need all the components. So now in verse number 16, he says, Tatra evam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tuya pashyati akrit buddhitvat na sapashyati durmati. Tatra evam sati. This is a idiomatic expression, which means this being the case. Tatra evam sati. Kartaram as the agent. Atmanam the self. Kevalam alone. Tu means verily. Ya means who. Pashyati sees. Akrit buddhitvat. Untrained understanding. Akrit buddhitvat. Na means not, sa means he, pashyati sees, durmati, perverted intelligence. So Lord Krishna says, now such being the case, and he made the case in the last couple of verses, so such being the case, verily he who owing to his untrained understanding looks upon his self, which is alone as the doer. He of perverted intelligence sees not. So in other words, a person who wants to take the full credit, not giving the credit to the rest of it, those factors, there's only one factor that I am doing it, Lord Krishna says, that's a durmati. Because of akrit buddhitavat. So we can see very clearly that action belongs to the realm of matter. There's no doubt about it. But without the presence of the spirit or the soul, matter cannot do anything. Failing to discriminate between the equipments of action and the actionless spirit, which manifest as the doer, the egocentric personality, it will come to pant and sigh at the disappointments and failures. Or it will dance and jump when the success is there. And this happens to most of us. In the success, we want to take all the credit. At the time of the failure, we just go into sadness. So the moment an individual becomes aware of these inner mechanisms, their play, the delusory egocentric individuality ends. So that's why in these verses, if we understand them properly and act upon them, our ego just comes down. So, tatra evam sati, this being the case, that means in all actions, whether good or bad, as undertaken by the body, speech or mind, because this is what he has been telling us. The essential component parts are the body, ego, organs of perception, organ of actions, the elements. So all actions belong to the matter. But spirit, the soul, comes to live through all those actions. Without the energy, that matter cannot do anything. So all pangs and joys, all failures and successes, all imperfections and impediments belong to the ego. Kevalam Atmanam, the supreme pure self, is misunderstood by an ordinary person to be the Kartaram, the actor. And in the consequent ego sense, the divinity is forgotten. We forget that the real us sitting in there, ego cannot even do anything without the presence of the spirit. So this is what he's trying to bring into our attention. And he says the causes of this misunderstanding is a akrit buddhi and a durmati. Akrit buddhi is untempered reasoning and durmati is a perverted mind. We need to adjust those. Otherwise, the maladjustment in a person, because of which right recognition of our own divinity is not constantly maintained. We got to bring our attention again and again because we have forgotten who we are. So the implication of these statements in this verse is that as a sadhak, if we integrate ourselves through the process of our sadhana, we got to understand our reasoning faculty, use our guiding mind, and experience ourselves. That's what he's trying to tell us. We don't want to keep our buddhi as a krit. We got to make it a krit buddhi. And we don't want our mati to be durmati. We want it to be sumati. That's why we do the sadhana. Sadhana is not only at the body level. Sure, there are bodily disciplines also. But eventually we got to work on our intellect also, on our mind also, and our ego also. This is what he is telling us. And then he continues in the verse 17. Yasena ahankrita bhava, buddhi yasena lipyate, hatva apisa iman lokan, na hanti, na nibhadyate. Yasya, whose. Na means not. Ahankrita, egoistic. Bhavaha, notion. Buddhi, intelligence. Yasya, of whom. Na lipyate, is not tainted. Hatva, having slain. Api, even. Sa, he. Iman, these. Lokan, people. Na hanti, slays not. Na nibhadyate, is not bound. He who is free from the egoistic notion, whose intelligence is not tainted, though he slays these people, he slays not, nor is he bound. That means bound by his actions. Remember, Arjuna is sitting in the middle of the war zone. That's why the terminology we see over here, this hatva, antihi. Okay, so Lord Krishna is describing the pure intellect, or the people having a purified intellect. They are free from the false pride of being the doer. And also, they do not seek to enjoy the fruits of their actions. And that's why they are not bound in the karmic reactions. So this is the benefit of keeping the mind pure, keeping the intellect pure. You understand who is the doer, what are those 5 factors. You learn to separate from all this. Because it is our unhealthy contact created by our own self-projections onto the prakriti around us has given rise to the ego. Higher the ego, more the suffering. So a person who is free from the sense of egoism and whose intelligence is not tainted by the false values of possessions, acquisitions, etc., very easily can let go of the doership. Even though the activities are taking place all around, through him also. Other people might think that this person is so busy, but that yogi knows who is doing the actions. Mouth is speaking, hands are working, legs are walking, but the real spirit does not do any actions. So he's acting in the world. To him, all is a game. Because it's always our egocentric clinging that leaves impressions, which we call vasanas in our mind. And the actions of the past come to goad us onto more and more actions. But a yogi who has better discrimination has learned to detach himself and act. So there are no footprints left in the chitta. We call that kind of a person egoless person of wisdom. When he works in any field, not expressing any kind of ego. But on the other hand, expressing the infinite will and attitude of total surrender and complete dedication. And no action can leave any impression in his mind. So Arjuna is told over here in this verse, he can act like that in this world without identifying himself with the matter sheets. Act continuously, do your duty. Remember, always have the consciousness of the divinity in you. He says, even if you kill, your enemies who are also your relatives, your teacher, your grandfather, you will not be perpetrating any crime. And there won't be any vasanas left in your chit also, if you can act like this. So we have to learn how to surrender our ego. More and more we are conscious of the divinity in us, easier it becomes to surrender our ego. And that's how the bondage of the vasanas are not there. I always like to remind myself and my students also about what Rahim ji said. You all know that Rahim was a saint in the Mughal Empire, and he was very charitable. Whenever he'll give something, his eyes will get lowered. And Sant Tulsidas ji was also at that time living. One time, Sant Tulsidas ji asked him, "Aisi dene dena jiyo, kit seekhe ho sen, ज्यों ज्यों कर ऊंचे करो, त्यों त्यों नीचे नैन." Because we give, kar means hands. When we give, so he says, you give with your hands. The more you give, the lower your eyes are. Where did you learn this? Normally what we do, when we give, the pride comes. Unfortunately, in today's age, where the social media is everywhere, even while giving, people like to have the pictures taken so that others know. But these saints, they knew how to give. So that's what Tulsidas ji is asking. Where did you learn this? The more you give, the lower your eyes are. Rahim ji replied, "De nahar koi aur hai, भेजता है दिन रैन, लोग भ्रम हम पर करें, याते नीचे नैन." Proper understanding he had. He's saying that I am not the sole cause or responsible for giving. Somebody else is giving it to me. Ultimately, who's giving it to us? देनहार कोई और है, भेजता है दिन रैन. Day and night, he keeps on giving us. लोग भ्रम हम पर करें, याते नीचे नैन. So he says, I remember this. Continuously, I'm getting it from him. Why should I have a pride? It's not mine. Doesn't belong to me. So egoistic pride of doership can be eliminated if we remember these verses of Lord Krishna. And we see that these saints, that's why we just remember their names and their qualities come into our heart, even after hundreds of years. This is what we have to learn. Now, starting from next verse, Lord Krishna is describing the impulse of karma and the basis of karma. We live in a karma yoni. So we got to have the proper understanding of karma. Number 18. Jnanam gyayam parigyata trividha karam cha udna karnam karam karta iti Trividha karam sangraha. Jnanam, the knowledge. Gyayam, the knowable. Parigyata, the knower. Trividha, threefold. Karam cha udnaha, impulse to action. Karnam, the organs, the instruments. Karam, the action. Karta, the agent, the doer. Iti means thus, trividha, threefold. Karam sangraha, the basis of action, the constituents of action. Knowledge, the known and knower, form the threefold impulse to action. The organs, the action, the agent form the threefold basis of action. So impulse to action. So according to Lord Krishna, threefold arrangement is made up of knowledge, the jnana, the known, gyaya, and the knower, parigyata. This is also called Gyan Triputi, triad of knowledge. So there's a technical word, Triputi. So, which is indicating the experiencer, the experienced, and the resultant experience. Knower, known, the knowledge, whichever way you can understand. Karama cha udana, impulse to action. Without these three, no action is ever possible. Because impulse to act really arises out of a play of these three. The experiencer playing in the field of the experienced will gain for himself the various experiences, and these constitute the secret contents of the action. So the impulse to action can spring either from the experiencer in the form of the desire, or from the experienced in the form of temptation, or from the experience in the form of subtle memories. In the past, we enjoyed something, so that is the memory. Beyond these three, there is no other impulse to action. They remember that. See, we do actions so fast, and multiple actions. Again, through the body also, mind also, words also. We forget that these three things are working on us constantly. There could be a desire, there could be a memory, or there could be object outside. We just get tempted by it. And then further we put the impression on our mind. And there are so many objects, so many memories, countless lives we have lived among these objects. So we don't know where it starts. And we just keep on making this mesh in our mind thicker and thicker. So this is impulse to action. When the impulse to action has arisen, we must also find a field to act. And the basis of action, karma sangraha, is constituted of the instruments then. If there is a desire to eat something, then I got to walk into the kitchen to pick up something to eat. So karam sangrah, the instruments, the reaction, and the agent. This is called a karam triputi. That was a Gyan Triputi. This is a Karam Triputi. Triad of action. Karta, Karan, and Karam. Well, you can see that two simple looking lines. The whole philosophy of Karam is given over here. So this sense of agency expressed by the ego can maintain itself only as long as it holds a vivid picture of the fruits of his actions. Whatever it wants to gain. Fruit means the profit or the gain that is intended to be gained by the action. That's the only reason we work. So when a desirer, the agent, encouraged by this constant attraction towards and satisfying end, the fruit, wants to achieve it, he must necessarily have the instruments of action. That's why this Karam Sangrah. So these instruments include not only the organs of perception and action, but also the inner equipments of the mind and the intellect. It cannot be very difficult for students like us to understand this. So Gyan Triputi and the Karam Triputi. So an agent having a desire, maintaining in his mind a clear picture of the end or the goal, and with all the necessary instruments to act. That is the sum total contents of any activity. Karam Sangrah. If any one of the above three items is absent, action cannot take place. So these three, Karnam, Karta, and Karam, are together designated as the Karam assembly, also you can call. So roughly, Lord Krishna is indicating in this verse the threefold impulses of action and threefold bases of action. We'll see in the verses which are coming, he will continue to explain why different people act so differently. If these three factors are there for all of us, why do we act so differently? Why we are under the different impulses? Why we obey different bases for our actions? And he will divide all of this in three different guns. Because each one of them are under these three categories of our human nature: Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. Beautifully, he will go into it. So it's very systematically he's teaching us the science of action, if you look at it. Or you can call it a limbs of action. And he's also explaining the karmic reactions of actions. And even a process of becoming free from them too. From the akrit buddhi, if we convert that into krit buddhi, from a durmati, if we can convert into the sumati, we can come out of it too. So just remember these six. Try to understand them. And knowledge is a primary impetus for action. Gyan. That's why the very first thing he said, Gyan. It provides understanding to the knower about the object of knowledge. It's almost like a awareness of the importance of winning a medal in the Olympics motivates a sport person to practice for years and countless actions, countless hours. Or knowledge about the degree from a top college, which carries the weight in the job market, that kind of a knowledge, the student works hard. Whether it's in the high school or grade school or even afterwards too. The importance. So Gyan. And the second set named as Karam Triputi, the Karta, Karan and Karam. The doer utilizes the instruments of actions to perform the action. These instruments also, we got to keep them sharp. We got to keep them healthy. In our prayers, we ask God, give us a sight, eyesight for 100 years. Give me the power to speak. Give me the power to hear also. Give me the power to work and walk so that I can do the seva instead of somebody else is serving me. We pray, but at the same time, we got to do our duty also. So when we look at this second set, the Karam Triputi, the doer, the instruments, and the Karam itself, daily we do so many actions. Okay, so try to understand this. And then in the next part, we'll see why we all act differently. Outside, it seems like we all have the same kind of a body. Basically, why actions are so much different? Why our behaviors are so much different? Our nature is so much different. We will go into the very detail into it. So let's look at verse number 19. Jnanam karam cha karta cha tridha eva gun bhedata prochate gun sankhyane yathavat shrinu tani api. Jnanam knowledge, karam action, cha and karta actor. Cha means and, tridha of three kinds. Ev means only, guna bhedata according to the distinction of the temperaments. Gun. Prochyate are declared. Gun sankhyane in the science of the gunas, the temperaments. Yathavat duly, shrinu here, tani them, api also. Says knowledge, action, and actor are declared in the science of temperaments to be of three kinds only. So there's no fourth kind, only three kinds. According to the distinctions of temperaments, hear them also duly. Duly means attentively. So guns, they are the preponderance of a given type of temperament in our inner nature. The human mind and intellect function constantly, but they always come to function under the different climatic conditions within our mind. These varying climates of the mind are called guns, and they could be good, sattvic, passionate, rajasic, or dull, tamasic. We are all familiar with these Sanskrit terms also. Under each of these temperaments, the entire human personality behaves differently. That's why there are permutations and combinations of the varieties, makeup of the infinite types, which we see in the world. Even in an individual person's biography, We find different moods and behaviors at different periods of time, depending entirely upon the occasion, upon the situation, the nature of the problem, or the kind of a challenge the person is facing. Or even with the person we are dealing with. That's why one person could be very sattvic in one situation or with some certain people, and can become very rajasic or tamasic somewhere else. So according to the science of the guns, he says, why does he use the word Sankhya over here? Because Sankhya philosophy is the twin. It is like a three twin philosophies. So Sankhya philosophy is the other part of the yoga philosophy. So he's using the Sankhya. So because Rishi Kapil has enumerated these in the Sankhya philosophy. So that's why he's saying, according to the science of the guns, as enumerated in Rishi Kapil's Sankhya Yoga, knowledge, action, and actor are each classified under these three categories. So this is, he says, I am going to go into. Then he says, listen attentively. It's not that Arjun was not listening, but the implication is over here that as a teacher, as a guru, Lord Krishna is attracting the special attention of Arjun. That listen attentively, I'm going to tell you something which is very important. So this is almost like suggesting to us also, we need to pay attention. It is very, very important. So that's where, from the next verse, verse number 20, the threefold types of knowledge we'll see, and then three folds of actors also, actions also. We'll see all the lot of information over here. I would suggest that make your separate notes, because in the next verse, we'll know what is a sattvic knowledge. Then we'll know what is a rajasic knowledge, what is a tamasic knowledge. Because sometimes we think knowledge is a knowledge. No, it falls under three categories. Everything in the Prakriti, everything can be divided, or it falls under three categories, everything. Okay, so we got to listen carefully too. Okay. So we'll start with verse number 20 next week. So let's end the class with a Shanti Path. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.